guy, bro. You the old guy now. That's crazy. Hey, so what are you gonna do? What are you gonna do? The 4 rounds left. You've lost every single one of them. You've lost every single round. This could be a legacy end of AJ. Smile. Smile. Here, come back.
It's fine, right?
Oh! Oh! You better stop playing. You better stop playing. That is nothing to play with. That big motherfucker in front of you, man. Ooh. That's it over, dog. Oh! 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 That's crazy. That's a wrap. Don't get up. Don't get up. Stay on. Oh! That's crazy. Ooh! Oh! Did you see that? Yeah. Yo. Don't mind me. Just smoking on that Jake Paul pack. Honestly, Jake Paul, trash. Tommy Fury, trash.
The dust has finally settled, the lights of the arena have dimmed, and the echoes of the crowd have faded into the annals of boxing history, yet the reverberations of what transpired between Jake Paul and Anthony Joshua continue to shake the foundations of the sport. It was an evening that defied logic, a spectacle that blurred the rigid lines between professional athletics and high-stakes entertainment, and a collision that many thought would never actually materialize. The atmosphere in the building was thick with a palpable tension, a mixture of morbid curiosity and genuine sporting anticipation that is rare even in the most storied championship bouts.
Jake Paul versus Anthony Joshua. What have we got here?
As I look at it, for the fans, it put boxing still on the map because it keeps boxing relevant. Having exhibition fights like this, different celebrities and different things like that. I look at it as a fun thing for fans and stuff like that. I don't really take it seriously, because, we in the business of boxing. That right there is just, exhibition stuff. But I'm hearing they say it's a real fight. But yeah, it's a real fight because both guys are getting in a fight. I'm still the one that be thinking certain things are scripted as well, too. So, but we'll see, I always say may the best man win, and main thing about it, may those guys go in there and have a hell of a lot.
When the final bell rang, or rather, when the final blow landed, the narrative shifted instantly from what if to what now, leaving pundits, fighters, and fans alike to dissect a moment that felt like a glitch in the combat sports matrix. The immediate aftermath was a chaotic blend of relief and reality. The towering figure of Anthony Joshua, a man who has held the unified heavyweight titles and conquered the globe's elite, stood tall, his hand raised not just in victory, but in a sort of validation of the sport's hierarchy.
They're going to step in the octagon, in the ring.
The ring, yes.
That's what's going to happen.
No, I know.
Fight.
But who do you think wins? What do you think actually happens in the fight?
I think AJ wins. Do you think otherwise?
Well, do you think, I think there's a lot of people who think he's going to knock him out in the first round.
Yeah, I would say so. But why exactly Jake Paul took that fight? That's what I'm excited to see.
Yeah.
What is his strategy?
Do you think it's dangerous? Do you think it's foolish for his health to take a fight? You've been in there with AJ. You know how good he is. Do you think it's foolish for him to take this fight?
Not foolish, but again, I don't know I don't understand. He's the only one that can know the reason, and I'm sure they thought that through, right? He didn't just wake up out of the blue and decide to pick.
For months, the question hung in the air. Could the disruptor from the digital world actually stand toe-to-toe with an Olympic gold medalist? The answer, delivered with the blunt force trauma of a right hand, was complex. It wasn't the immediate demolition job many cynics predicted, nor was it the fairy tale upset the dreamers hoped for. It was a gritty, awkward, and surprisingly extended affair that saw Jake Paul survive far longer than the oddsmakers anticipated, lasting into the middle rounds before the gulf in class became insurmountable.
It's very difficult to go in like, you know, out the ring for 14 months and just be razor sharp with a guy running. And so yeah, probably 2 or 3 rounds more than expected. But fair play to Jake Paul. It was a lot tougher than I thought, and he took a lot more shots than I thought he could.
What did AJ tell you inside the ring about the fight or how
Oh, he said, oh, you were shouting at me, rushing me. I said, yeah, I just wanted, you know. But like, I think he was always going to take his time. I think he was always going to be the guy that wasn't just going to go in there erratic. I said this earlier. And if Jake was aggressive, then I think he would have actually got caught earlier. But he was smart. Like, his movement was good. He was clever in the clinch. I was actually impressed. But, you know, obviously there was a massive gulf between them, and it was only a matter of time. But listen, fair play. As I said, he did more rounds than expected.
The commentary team noted that Paul's movement was sharper than credited. He wasn't just a stationary target waiting for the inevitable. He used the ring, slipped shots, and for a fleeting moment, looked like he belonged. But belonging is different from winning, and as the rounds ticked by, the ominous ticking clock of Joshua's power grew louder until it struck midnight. In the locker room post-fight, the mood was surprisingly buoyant for a defeated camp. The talk wasn't of devastation, but of respect earned in blood and sweat. There was a sense that by merely stepping through the ropes and absorbing the punishment of a top-tier heavyweight, a point had been proven. The narrative being spun was one of resilience. Lasting 6 rounds with one of the hardest hitters on the planet was framed as a victory in its own right. Paul, sporting the physical toll of the encounter with a jaw that had seen better days and movement compromised by body shots, remained defiant.
It was an awkward night, you know. AJ couldn't get to grips with him, obviously. Jake had a really good game plan, moving his feet, lateral movement, slipping and sliding. Obviously been practicing that a lot in sparring. And you got to give him credit. He came out there and gave it a good go. Took his licks like a man, didn't complain. You know, fighting a much bigger, more established, world-class fighter. So that's usually what happened. What was always going to happen. You know, a lot of people thought he would only last 1 round, 2 rounds, but you know, you got to give Jake credit. You know, he went out there and had a solid game plan and was implementing it at times, was landing shots and was avoiding getting hit with the big shots. You know, but there's a reason we have weight categories in boxing, and I'd say he sticks with, you know, the cruiserweight division where the guys are the same size as him, because that, you know, without having the schooling, the many years, I was able to give away 100 pounds in weight because I've been boxing since I was 10. I was an international amateur and world champion at cruiserweight. That's why I was able to do the big jump and use the tactics that he used to win the heavyweight championship. But so credit to him, nothing but respect for Jake Paul for putting on such an event and putting himself in harm's way.
That was incredible. In my view, that was a victory on all fronts. Like, minus the actual victory, of course, but bro, like, no one expected him in the last 6 rounds with AJ. In my opinion, he won 4 of them. People will argue that he at least won 3. No one expected him to last that long. Rolled his ankle, broke his jaw, still fucking fighting, man. Like, that's toughness. You know, most people wouldn't have the balls ever to step in a boxing ring in their life. He stepped in a boxing ring with one of the baddest men on the planet. Who's 40 pounds heavier than him, is 6 inches taller. That's insane. He's one of the most skilled fighters on the planet. My brother, as a fucking YouTuber, went 6 rounds with him fighting with a broken jaw and rolled ankle. I'm so proud of him. That was just unbelievable.
He spoke of the experience not as a career ender, but as a badge of honor, a testament to a level of toughness that his detractors had long claimed he lacked. The rhetoric shifted from brash predictions of knockouts to the moral victory of survival, a common pivot when reality checks are cashed in the ring. However, the analysis from the wider boxing world was far less forgiving and deeply fractured. The spectrum of opinion following the bout was vast, illustrating just how polarizing this event was. On one end, you had the seasoned purists who saw the fight as a necessary corrective, a reminder that there are levels to this game that cannot be hacked or bypassed. Then, there were the voices of the heavyweight elite, the peers of Anthony Joshua, who looked at the spectacle through a lens of professional skepticism. Deontay Wilder, never one to mince words or shy away from controversy, cast a long shadow of doubt over the entire proceeding. The bronze bomber questioned the authenticity of the competition itself, suggesting that the prolonged nature of the fight hinted at something choreographed rather than competitive. To Wilder, the idea that a novice could evade a seasoned killer like Joshua for that long defied the physics of the sport he knows so well. He raised philosophical questions about what constitutes a real fight in the modern era, implying that when the money is this big and the entertainment value this high, the integrity of the violence might be the first casualty. It was a cynical take, perhaps, but one that resonated with a segment of the fanbase that struggles to reconcile the skill gap with the visual evidence of the fight going rounds. Contrast this with the perspective of Francis Ngannou, a man who knows intimately the shock of transitioning into the boxing world against the elite. Ngannou, who felt the full force of Joshua's power in his own crossover attempt, offered a more cerebral take. He wasn't surprised by the outcome, but was fascinated by the mechanics of the event. For Ngannou, the intrigue lay in the strategy. He recognized that Joshua, coming off his own career turbulence, likely used the fight to calibrate, to be patient, and to avoid the erratic mistakes that can occur when rushing a knockout. He saw a calculated champion rather than a struggling one. Ngannou pointed out that for Paul, the strategy was purely survival: motorcycle around the ring, use the legs, and pray the tank doesn't run empty. It was a clash of objectives. One man trying to dismantle an opponent surgically, the other trying to solve a puzzle that was simply too complex for his level of experience. Then there was the highly respected voice of Teddy Atlas, a trainer who dissects fights with the precision of a surgeon. Atlas refused to view the fight in black and white. He acknowledged the absurdity of the matchup on paper, but insisted on analyzing the human element. He noted that Joshua, despite his physical advantages, entered the ring with the psychological baggage of past defeats and the pressure of a no-win situation. If Joshua wins early, he's a bully. If he wins late, he's washed up. Atlas argued that this psychological dynamic gave Paul a window of opportunity, however slim, to exploit hesitation. He credited Paul with utilizing his youth and athleticism to navigate the early storms, suggesting that the influencer's camp had done their homework on Joshua's tendencies to reset and overthink. It wasn't that Paul was on Joshua's level, but rather that he was smart enough to exist in the spaces where Joshua was passive. The conversation took a darker turn when listening to the likes of Conor McGregor and David Haye. McGregor, usually the architect of chaos and the first to applaud a lucrative spectacle, seemed genuinely disturbed by the physical reality of the matchup. His commentary stripped away the glitz and the pay-per-view numbers to focus on the biological mismatch. He spoke of the bad intentions that a 240-pound man carries in his fists, a kinetic energy that doesn't care about YouTube subscribers or marketing angles. McGregor's apprehension was palpable. He viewed the fight not as a game, but as a dangerous gamble with health. He respected the courage it took for Paul to sign the contract, but feared the consequences of that bravery. Similarly, David Haye, who has sparred Joshua and knows the feeling of heavyweight impact, emphasized the deceptive nature of television. On screen, two men might look similar in size, but the density, the bone structure, and the years of conditioning create a disparity that is lethal. Haye pointed out that Paul, for all his dedication and expensive training camps, was a cruiserweight forcing his body into a realm where it didn't naturally belong. The shock of his life, that Haye predicted, wasn't just about losing a match. It was about the physiological shock of being hit by a force that the body has no evolutionarily prepared response for. Joseph Parker, having shared the ring with Joshua for 12 grueling rounds, provided the most pragmatic assessment. To him, the result was a foregone conclusion written in the DNA of the sport. Parker dismissed the idea of a miraculous upset, grounding his view in the sheer accumulation of experience. He noted that Joshua has seen every style, every feint, and every desperate haymaker the heavyweight division has to offer. A novice, no matter how athletic, simply doesn't have the database of reactions to deal with that. Parker's advice to Paul before the fight had been telling: survive. It wasn't about winning rounds or landing counters. It was about damage limitation. This sentiment was echoed by the undisputed king, Alexander Usyk. From his vantage point atop the mountain of boxing greatness, the fight was barely a blip on the radar. Usyk, a man of few words but profound meaning, categorized the event as a dangerous curiosity. He respected the hustle but feared the execution, noting that the anger and darkness within Joshua was not something to be toyed with by a part-timer. To Usyk, boxing is not a game to be played, and the ring is not a content creation studio. Yet, amid all the technical breakdowns and safety concerns, the voice of the promoter, Dana White, cut through with the cold logic of the business. White didn't concern himself with the purity of the sport or the intricacies of the jab. He focused on the raw human element of curiosity. He understood better than anyone why the fight happened and why millions tuned in. It wasn't about the competitive architecture. It was about the what if. It was the same impulse that makes people slow down to look at a car crash or watch a high-wire act. The unknown factor, the slight, fractional chance that the impossible could happen, is a powerful drug. White recognized that while the purists might turn their noses up, the general public is captivated by the spectacle of the unprecedented.